Welcome to my podcast, Life with Denise, sharing inspiring conversations and heartfelt wisdom. Follow online at denisepettit.com, YouTube at Denise Pettit, and Instagram at Denise Pettit. Be part of the solution, not part of the problem. Welcome back. This is Life with Denise, the podcast where we dig into ideas that matter. I'm Denise, and today we're going to be talking about something that sounds like a bumper sticker, but it turns out to be one of the most radical things that a human being can actually do. Be part of the solution, not part of the problem. You've heard that saying. Your teacher said it, your boss has said it, maybe your mom even said it. But what does it actually mean? And why is it so hard to live out? Let's start with the story. It's January 1998. A 6-year-old boy named Ryan Haroljak is sitting in his first grade classroom in a small town in Ontario, Canada. His teacher is explaining that in parts of Africa, children walk for hours every single day just to collect water. And when they get to the water, they find out that the water is brown, smelly, and makes them sick. Ryan starts thinking about the water, and he counts the steps from his desk to the classroom water fountain in the back of the class. 10 steps. He has clean water in just 10 steps. So those other kids were walking for hours. So Ryan goes home, and he's moved by this story, and he goes home that afternoon, and he tells his parents that he wants to do something. He wants to raise $70 and build a well in Uganda. That's a lofty goal for a 6-year-old young man, isn't it? His parents agree, and they decided they would pay him extra for his chores. And 4 months later, Ryan has that $70. But then he finds out the truth. A well doesn't cost $70. It costs $2,000. Now, most 6-year-olds would just cry, shrug, and go back to watching cartoons and forget all about the well. That would be completely understandable. But Ryan just couldn't give up on the idea. He decided doing more chores. And then he started talking to friends and schools and churches, community clubs, and to anyone who would listen to this little first grader with a special mission. And people started seeing his passion, and they started sending money to an envelope addressed simply Ryan's Well, Kemptville, Ontario. No street address, no postal code, just his name, because the post office by now knew exactly where to send it. And then in January 1999, 1 year after the classroom lesson, that first well was drilled in Angalo Primary School in northern Uganda. Ryan was only 7 years old by this time. You know, that's amazing, isn't it? And here's where it gets even better. Ryan got a pen pal from that village, a boy named Jimmy. They wrote letters back and forth as pen pals do. And Ryan, as he got older, eventually flew to Uganda to see the well, and 5,000 children lined the roadside to greet such a young man. Ryan and Jimmy became such close friends that in years to come, Ryan's family actually adopted Jimmy, who is now his brother. As of 2025, Ryan's Well Foundation has brought clean water to 1.6 million people across 17 developing countries through over 1,800 water projects. 1.6 million people, from a kid who just thought it wasn't fair that he had clean water in 10 steps. Now that's what this phrase looks like when it's put into practice. Not some grand plan, not a genius idea, just a child who was bothered by this idea that looked at a problem and thought, someone's got to do something about this. And he decided that that someone was him. And here's the thing about being part of the solution. It's way easier to be part of the problem, isn't it? And I don't mean that as an insult. I just mean that's the way we're built. It's just like biology. Our brains are wired for something called negativity bias. We notice problems faster than opportunities. We remember complaints longer than compliments. When you go through a door and a stranger holds the door open for you, you think, that's nice, thank you, and you move on. But a stranger cuts you off in traffic and you're going to still be talking about that and fuming about it at dinner. That's not a character flaw. That's just how our human brains are. And there was a time when spotting danger fast was more important than appreciating those sunsets. In ancient times, people had to be constantly aware because the wild animals would attack them and their homes and their families. But here's the problem. We're not running from lions anymore. And that same wiring, the one that kept our ancestors alive, is now keeping a lot of us stuck. Because when something goes wrong, our brain's first move is to look for a threat. And in the modern world, that threat usually looks like a person to blame, a system to resent, a situation to declare hopeless. We become the person who sees the glass as half empty, permanently, reflexively, almost proudly, like something like pessimism is the smart, clear-eyed, realistic take. But is it, though? Is the person who throws their hands up and says, this is broken, and there is nothing we can do? Actually, are they the one that are seeing things more clearly? Or are they just seeing half the picture? Here's the truth. The glass isn't half empty or half full. It's both. The question is which half you choose to act on. Complainers focus on what's missing, but solution-oriented people see what's missing, and then they ask, what can be done about it? That shift from, isn't this awful, to, so what do we do about it, is not naive. It's not toxic positivity. It's not pretending the problem doesn't exist. It's just choosing to be useful. And research actually backs this up. There's been studies done, and there was one at the University of California, where researchers asked groups of people to solve a community problem. Now, half of the group were told to figure out who was to blame first. The other half jumped straight to solutions. And I'm going to ask you, guess which group solved the problem faster? That's right, the solution first group, by a lot. When blame becomes the main event, it crowds out everything else. We get so focused on why it happened that we forget to ask, what now? The defeatist mindset whispers, it's just too big, too broken, nothing I do will matter. And you know what? That mindset is never, ever wrong because it never actually tries. It's the world's most self-fulfilling prophecy. The solution mindset says something different, however. It says, I don't know if this will work, but I'm going to find out. And that is the glass half full person. Not the one who pretends there's no problem, but the one who looks at the problem and thinks, okay, what's possible? And I'm sure right now that someone is listening and they're thinking, but what about holding people accountable? What about speaking up about injustice? Is be part of the solution just a way to tell people to shut up and stop complaining? Well, actually, that's a great question. But the answer is absolutely not. There's a massive difference between complaining and naming a problem. Naming a problem is the first step of being part of the solution. You can't fix what you won't acknowledge, right? You can't change what you won't acknowledge. But here's the distinction. Naming a problem and wallowing in it are two different things. You can call out what's broken and roll up your sleeves at the same time. The people who change things aren't the ones who yell the loudest about what's wrong. They're the ones who yell, maybe, and then they get to work. And I know that not all of us are like that 7-year-old boy drilling wells. And some of us are just trying to survive life and deal with the responsibilities of the bills and the jobs and family obligations and just maybe our own stress of life on any day of the week. But when something presents itself as a problem, as everyday life does, on a daily basis, do you deliberate for 20 minutes or maybe longer and go back and forth about how it got messed up or whose idea was this anyway? And why did this have to happen to you? What do you do? Well, sometimes, unfortunately, we just sit and ruminate and wallow in the mire. We live in the negative part of the real estate of our mind and our thinking. We become passengers in the journey of life instead of in the driver's seat. But what if you said just once, "So what do I do about this from here?" That one sentence can change the entire direction of your thinking. It's not dismissing what happened. It's just steering toward what matters next. So the next time you spiral into blame land or despair land, say to yourself, "What do I do about it from here?" Those words, try it. It works. When you apply this to yourself, you create the habit to apply it to conversations and situations with others. And that creates an opportunity for you to be what I call an atmosphere changer. We're going to talk more about being an atmosphere changer and that concept in a future episode. But I think to be part of the solution is really asking us to make a choice every single day about the kind of person we want to be. Are you the person in the room who lists all the reasons that something won't work? Or are you the one who asks, what would it take to make it work? Are you the one who waits for someone else to fix things and then complains when they do it wrong or they don't do it at all? Or the one who says, "You know what? I'll just start. I'll just do it." Are you half empty or are you half full? Because nobody is one thing all the time. We all have our complaining days. We all have mornings where the world just looks gray and broken and not worth the effort. That's human. Not even worth feel like you to get out of bed. But give yourself a break. But as a default setting, as the person you are when the chips are down, which would you rather be? Because here's what I've noticed about solution-oriented people. They're not necessarily more talented. They're not luckier. They're not less aware of how hard things are. They've just made a quiet decision somewhere along the way that their energy is better spent on what's possible than on what's wrong. That decision, that one internal shift, changes everything about how you show up. Now, I've thought about this and I figured out that there are 3 things that would be a great reminder that I want to share with you today. Number 1, look for what you can actually do. Not what someone else should do, but what you can do with what you have right now. Even if it's just one street, one well, or steering a question in a conversation with a friend. Number 2, choose curiosity over complaint. The next time you catch yourself venting, try adding one question at the end and say, "So what could we do about that?" That question is like a door to help you to walk through to the solution. Number 3, start before you're ready. Think about Ryan. He was only 6 years old when that thought came in his mind. He didn't wait until he was old enough. Don't wait for permission. Just get started. It's amazing that the resources, the momentum, the collaborators, those seem to show up when you get started. You don't need to save the world. You just need to do your part. You know, there's a story that I love, and it's a story about an older man that was walking along a beach after the storm. And there were hundreds of starfish, that had been washed on the shore, and they were dying in the sun. And there was a little boy that was walking along, and he was picking them up one by one and throwing them back into the ocean. The man said, "Hey, you know what, son? There are thousands of them. You can't possibly make a difference." And the young boy picked up another starfish and he threw it in, and he said, "Well, I made a difference to that one, didn't I?" I know it might be a cheesy story, sure, but the story has stuck around for decades because it points to something that's true. That half-empty person sees thousands of dying starfish and feels defeated, but the half-full person sees one starfish that they can still save and bend down to help it out. The world's not going to be saved by one perfect hero or one perfect plan. It's going to be nudged, pushed, and pulled forward by a whole lot of regular people, like a 7-year-old doing chores, a teenager clearing rubble on a beach, who decided just to do their part. Be that person. Be part of the solution. Thanks for listening, and share this episode with someone who would love to hear it. This is Life with Denise, and I'm Denise. Remember, be part of the solution and not part of the problem. See you next time. Thank you for listening to Life with Denise, sharing inspiring conversations and heartfelt wisdom. Follow online at denisepettit.com, YouTube at Denise Pettit, Instagram at Denise Pettit. See you next time.